Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial, and in this one we make our return to the rank up champion, guys. We haven't seen one in a while, since the beginning of season 9 in fact, but I'm happy to reintroduce the series with one of my mains, Warwick, and yes, that is how you pronounce it both in the American and British dictionaries. It is originally a British city, so I will say Warwick. If you want to sound like a candle trying to go to war, be my guest. And while previous editions of this series have been quite analytical, we're going to streamline the approach and give you more usable tips that you can translate into your games. But as always, that will include a discussion on the abilities, examples of how to use these combos, runes, items, first clears, teamfighting control, as well as some pretty plays. And if we reach my personal view and like goal for this video, I will pick one of the most upvoted champions in the comments to do one of these on next, so make sure you get your suggestions in and upvote the ones you want to see, except Shaco. And with no further messages today, just sponsoring myself, I can hopefully captivate you with this motion tracked scene introducing his abilities. They will give you the bullet points on what each ability does. I will give examples specifically to each of these in a short bit after we've done items and runes, but this should just give you a good rundown of what they do. The passive is your basic attacks that heal you when you are below 50% HP, more so when you are below 25 HP. And as with most of the spells, you will see, hey look, they do magic damage. Yes, Warwick is a heavy magic damage doer, which sounds strange, but it's true. He's definitely a hybrid champion, which entirely fits his Chimera theme. You'll note that his Q scales on AD and AP, which will be a point of discussion in the item section. It applies on hit effects, as does his ultimate. And yes, the ability we max isn't Q, it is that W, as you can see, and even though it might be the more boring of the skills, it is the most defining. It helps you chase down enemies with its activation, and it also passively gives you bonus attack speed when enemies are below 50% HP, which when combined with your passive can lead to a very strong 1v1 dueling capability. And then finally, his E gives you damage reduction on the first proc, lets you fear enemies on the second, and has some neat interactions with his ultimate that we'll go over in the abilities section. So the reason for that basic introduction is that you need to have some of an understanding about his abilities when you talk about first clears, items, and runes. And beginning with the latter, there is a very standard first page that everyone uses pretty much. There are very rare exceptions. There is no better rune than Press the Attack, Getting Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Last Stand synergizes very well with your passive and W passive. So as you're in a duel and you lose your HP, you dish up more damage, you're healing more. As they lose HP, they're getting more damage from you as well. People have spoken to me about Electrocute, Aftershock, Conqueror. You're giving up so much when you go for the Aftershock, and the fact that it's reliant on you hitting that CC and no longer scales with AD kind of lessens its impact. Predator is probably the only one in the domination tree that I would even consider thinking about, but even then, it's not really that necessary. You already are fast, you already have big leap range, why not synergize with your kit the most? And on the note of synergies, no, I'm not talking about TFT, get your head out of the gutter. The secondary rune pages are where things get interesting. Now, you would have seen I've displayed Celerity and Water Walking. I still actually like this as one of my default pages. Celerity giving bonus movement speed to all sources, water walking in the river, you get much more upfront movement speed, and when you're in the lower mid MMRs, rotating is so important. You need to be able to get to those horrific fights that your team are taking. You need to be able to rotate to the ganks that were warded and pinged out, but your laner is apparently a fish from the deep sea. So this is the most basic rune combination. However, a lot of Diamond and above Warwick mains, even those in Masters Plus, are opting for conditioning and revitalizing that secondary tree, and I've been using that myself as well. I like the idea that you get those added resistances. Even if you aren't building full tank Warwick, it gives you some valuable resistance in the mid to late game, which is extremely vital in a champion like Warwick when you're diving in and you're going to be in the middle of a fight. Even if you're peeling, you want to be able to survive as long as possible with your E, with the conditioning, with your resistances, and revitalize giving you those heals only helps even further. And yes, you domination junkies on the secondary tree if you really want. Relentless Hunter does give you nice movement speed scaling. You have Cheap Shot if you want a bit more of that added damage. And then the two healing options, Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter, are also viable. So if you really don't like the feel of Celerity Water Walking, you don't like the feel of those tanky stats, and you prefer to have a bit more sustain or a bit more scaling movement speed, that domination tree can help you also. Now obviously there's room to tinker here and there, but I do believe these are the best rune page options and are backed by win rate statistics as well. And now with a basic understanding of abilities, let's just talk quickly about the level 1 through 3 and the first clear. There was a time, once upon a time, when we used to start W. W was different, Machete was different, the jungle was different, and you could stand there, go get a coffee, and you would be able to clear the first camp without thinking. Now we do want to go for that Q. The most basic attack combo is of course auto, Q, auto, and you don't want to have to focus Krugs and Raptors early, especially without the blue buff. So single target clears, either going from red to the blue side or going blue side to the red buff, and then looking to gank, invade, get scuttle crabs. You will see a few options on screen now for what you can do with this champion early on. But you only really want to default back to Raptors and Krugs after you've cleared the rest of the camps at a single target. You've also looked to grab a scuttle crab or both scuttle crabs, you've had a gank, you've counter jungled, and you don't have enough gold yet for Tiamat. Then you can consider using your smite, using your remaining resources to go take those camps. That is of course an ideal example if you have lost your red buff, maybe you were invaded, maybe something went down where you cannot leave your jungle. You can do Krugs and Raptors. Just make sure, because you are a single target champion, you're attacking the small monsters first. We don't have AoE spells for clearing, and so good clear technique will dictate that we take out those small ones first. The old trick on the wolf camp, for example, is that you Q the big one while auto attacking the small ones. Use your combination there to get them down as fast as possible. Also make sure you are smiting as soon as you get to a camp, because the lower HP the camp is, the higher your attack speed and the faster you end up taking it, and also of course healing yourself a bit more in the process. So obviously starting Q, you want to take W second to get your healing and attack speed passive online. It gets your low HP sensor online as well, so you can use that as a scout for around the map to see, as you're taking your jungles, who might be low HP, who is gankable once you hit level 3. Don't forget to use E on the scuttle crab to lower its resistances and make it easier for you to clear. And as a final note, yes, you can technically take E second and go for a level 2 gank after you do one camp. Just remember that it puts you out there, you don't have W to rotate quicker, you don't have that sustainability in the jungle until you get level 3. Weigh the pros and cons. And on that note, after the first clear, you do want to look to gank. You don't need to be level 6. You can easily use your flash E, you can easily use your Q follow throughs. And when we talk about the abilities now, please watch for the ganks, watch for the ability combinations that are going on screen, as well as listening to what these abilities can do. There might not be as much variety as complicated champions like Riven, but you can see enough of a variation in your lane ganks and your side ganks when you flash. Maybe you flash ult, maybe you're saving your E fear to the absolute last possible second to avoid CC. Don't commit all your abilities before you get to those CC. Use your Q to go through enemies and fear them afterwards. You definitely have some options available to you, and you want to use all the tools at your disposal to surprise enemies, to outplay them, because your kit is quite simple. Just the fact that you can use your Q through in different situations, you can use your E in different timings, you can flash R, even if you don't hit your R and you just get the fear off, that's absolutely fine. All of these things can still surprise enemies even though they know what's coming. I'm just going to run over some things you should know that each ability does that allow you to optimize fully the Warwick experience. This one heals you, it does maximum HP damage, it applies on-hit effects, but what you're all here for is what you see on screen. Me and other junglers following through with Q, staying with flashes, staying with dashes, and the most important tip I can give you regarding that is understanding the activation range, as you can see frozen on screen now, of that ability. You don't want to be double tapping it and spamming it trying to latch on, because that's how, if you are too far away, you will simply chomp down. You won't follow through, you'll be at the maximum range of the bite, and so you'll just bite them. But if you want to stay with a target, much like I do with this Gnar, you need to get as close as possible within that activation range and hold it down at the exact right moment. It's an exercise in timing and skill of when to use that ability. Just remember, you might end up traveling in a dangerous spot like I do with this Corki here and you die, or you go into tower and you die. Know when you just want to tap it and when you want to hold it. Also, I have a dedicated guide if you want more in-depth, more examples, and more explanation. W is the ability we max, and most importantly we max it because the attack speed goes from 50 to 110%, the movement speed goes from 35 to 55%, the cooldown goes from 120 to 60, and the movement speed, the attack speed, the damage, the healing output that you can dish from maxing this ability first greatly outdoes any sort of scaling in the Q, because, pure and simple, the Q's cooldown remains at 6 no matter what. Your effective DPS and your effective map mobility goes way higher with this ability than it would do with Q. Yes, your healing goes up nicely from 30 to 90% when you max Q, but your damage really does not. and there is no other benefit other than increased mana cost. There are some people who like to put 3 points in Q to get a bit more healing and then max a W. However, most people in higher elos will just max W straight away. And allows you to bring together your Q ability and E fear so that as you have a low HP target, you get closer and closer, you can chase them down. You prime your E proc 1, it gives you the damage reduction, which you don't care about at this point. You follow through with a Q, let them dash, you release your E, you fear them away, and you kill them. Yeah, you die, but it was pretty to look at, so it doesn't matter. The point is, with the W and your fact that you can chase people down with it, you can also press it to scout Evelynns, Shakos, Pikes, and keep track of them during team fights or important engages at any stage of the game when you need to see them. Now, there's not much more to add about his R. I'm just going to talk about the R and E synergy. If you prime E before you ult, and then you ult into the middle of a fight, it will immediately activate that E, but doesn't end the damage reduction. So that's what you're looking for when you engage into team fights with your R ability. You need to know if you're going to dive the back line and take out an enemy target, or if you're a tankier build, if your whole goal is to flash E, fear the enemy, and then ult a target, or just R in and activate your E as soon as you're in the middle of them to fear them all, which allows your team to follow up. That's the most important thing. But if you do hit your R, you will fear the enemies, you don't lose a damage reduction, but you are easily displaced by CC, and that's why this is very important. If you're diving into the middle of a team that has a ton of CC, you do want to have that E prime before you ult so that you do not get disrupted while you suppress the target you're currently focusing. If you're against a Talon, using your fear and your W simply to help peel can be so incredibly useful to winning games. This game where you just saw the example of me doing that for the Vayne, we were losing hardcore. It was not a good game. As soon as I started pressing W on the Talon, fearing him before he could get his full damage output, the Vayne was surviving, and we were just cleaning up every single fight doing that. And now onto the itemization, and this is where things can get a little tricky. There are a lot of different builds seen in the wild, no pun intended, but I will start you off with the most basic and then evolve the builds as we go on. And despite the order that I show these, this is just the way I put them in my inventory. You must rush that Tiamat first. That is the crucial item for your clears. It goes with your W passive of increased attack speed. That's the gold threshold you're looking for on your first back. So the classic one is you go Cinderhulk, Tiamat, you get Deadmans, you've got a Spirit Visage in there, maybe a Thorn Mail and an Adaptive Helm depending on who you're facing. Remember, the magic resist, you should pick up one that is most applicable to the enemy team comp, not just because you want more healing from Spirit Visage. Same goes for Thorn Mail. If you need a Randuin Zombie, make sure to pick that up. And then of course you have your Titanic Hydra to finish. Now this is great for first time Warwicks, learning his tanky stats, learning his damage output. The Deadmans goes really great with his movement speed and his ult range. However, my own evolution of this has always been to go that Cinderhulk, Tiamat, complete that Titanic Hydra, you get an Iceborne Gauntlet, you get your Mercrets or Ninja Tabby as necessary most of the time. It'll be pretty obvious which one to get. You have a Vayne and a Tryndamere on the enemy team, as well as a Master Yi jungle, you're gonna get Ninja Tabby. And then I will finish off with a Spirit Visage and maybe even a Guardian Angel. This is if I'm feeling I'm very far ahead, I'm winning fights, I'm crucial to the game-winning condition, so I don't want to die. But on that note, if you've gone the more traditional tanky build, and you need a bit of magic resist and a bit of sustain, Wit's End is a great item for the full tank build. It goes very nicely together, but we're all here for a bit of spice and not always meta-conforming builds, and in that case, you switch out that Cinderhulk item for a warrior. You still get your Tiamat, you still get your Titanic, you still go Iceborne Gauntlet, and the rest of the build and options are the same. The warrior just gives you such a nice power spike. The red smite damage reduction, the chomp, the heal, it all goes so well together. This is definitely a bit more of an advanced build. You need to know Warwick's sustainability, his damage output, and you have to play accordingly. Now your job isn't as much always survive and thrive, it's you want to take someone out on the back line. You want to actually assassinate and punish out of position enemies, and if you are very far ahead, some of you have seen on stream, I do go for that Trinity Force instead of the Iceborne Gauntlet. It is very rare that I do because I like the resistance, I like the cost effectiveness of Iceborne Gauntlet, but if you're really feeling you want that full damage output, Warrior, Titanic, and Triforce are your 3 items before going full tank. I do like the Cinderhulk because it goes well with the Titanic Hydra active also, in addition to giving extra HP that I give up when I choose to go for an Iceborne Gauntlet. But I'll just finish up by saying if you want to go for the Bloodrazor build instead of a warrior into full tank, you can do that. There are a few players who still do this. It's again a bit more risky. If you've got a full tank composition against you and that's your only real damage item, that can be something you want to go for. And on the experimental side, if you are far ahead, if you really are going all out damage, you know, Bruiser Warwick, maybe you're throwing in the Sterix gauge as well, you can opt to go for Sork Boots. Because you do so much magic damage, that only helps you against a team that is maybe full of squishies, giving you more direct access to, well, penetrate. Abyssal Mask, again, amplifies magic damage, or you do magic damage. And finally, one I like, the one you can really consider instead of a GA, is Zhonya's, because the AP from Zhonya's actually results in more damage output on your Q than the AD from GA. You just have to consider what's more useful, the regeneration of HP when you die from GA, but the longer cooldown, or having Zhonya's up more often because you can use it at the right time. Hopefully that's enough of a total package and discussion that you can create your own playstyle, use the abilities in the right way. Don't forget you can take early dragons, level 3, any dragons, any rift heralds, those are absolutely free at any point in the game for you. So make sure to prioritize that in your pathing, in your ganking ability, and that will bring you a lot of success with this champion, who's a great way to climb to diamond and perhaps beyond. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like, share, and comment if you want to see more of these for different champions. I hope you're able to enjoy and learn something. Consider becoming an official member on YouTube to support the channel and the content. Maybe subscribe if this is the kind of thing you want to see more of. We have a lot of League of Legends and jungle videos coming very soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.